Let's continue our Locked On Blue Jackets top 25 under 25 players list. Today we're looking at players 20 through 11, and there are a couple of surprises in there. So let's get into it on Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get things started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. And I also have to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner, so visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. So Monday's episode, we got started on the top 25 players under the age of 25 in the Blue Jackets organization. We went through a couple of honorable mentions, and then we did players 25 through 21 in the rankings. So today, we're going to start at player 20 in the rankings and go all the way up to 11, and then Friday's episode, we'll finish off. We'll do 10 all the way up to number 1. We're in a weird part of the ranking at the minute, and when I say that, I mean... So yesterday we finished off with Luke Ashton as player number 21, which surprised me. We're in a bit of a stretch here of players that I'm surprised were ranked as highly as they were. And that's not to say that they are bad players. I did not have them ranked as highly. And so the way that I did this was I have a consensus ranking, which is what all of you guys filled out. And then I have my own personal ranking, and I've kind of been matching them as best I can against each other. But we're going to start off, we're going to talk about Tanner Henricks to start off with, who is another Don Waddell draft pick, was a 4th round pick last year, is another very tall defenseman, decent skater, kind of not underrated necessarily, but he is coming off of a season with the Lincoln Stars of the USHL. We had 33 points in 60 games, which as a defenseman is pretty good. And he's going into his first season at St. Cloud State University. Of note, the thing about Tanner Henricks is he was actually named to the Team USA under 20s team/camp for the the little tournament they just did, where they brought in Canada, they had Canada, US, Sweden, and Finland, and they did a little round robin type thing. And Tanner Henricks was named to that, which was a little bit of a surprise. But maybe it bodes well for his future as a Blue Jackets prospect, because I'm not gonna lie, he wasn't super high on my list. He I was like, oh, okay, it's another tall skating defenseman. We know the Don Waddell loves these, right? The Blue Jackets have drafted 4 or 5 of them over the last 2 years, right? But maybe there's something more there. And I don't get a chance to watch a ton of NCAA hockey, but I think I'm going to try and catch some of his games if I can. Like I said, he's going to be at St. Cloud State for the upcoming season. I suspect probably he'll be there for a couple of years. I don't think the organization is in any rush with him. I do think that he's quite highly valued in the organization itself. And I say this because I talked to Dylan Tyre a couple of months ago, and we talked about, underrated prospects in the organization. And Tanner Henricks was a guy that he mentioned as underrated. And again, I don't know whether that's, the opinion of the organization is not the opinion of the person, right? But if someone who works for the organization is mentioning him, then I feel like he's probably on the organization's radar, right? So he's an interesting name to keep an eye on. Again, it's going to be, probably 2 years at college, couple of years in the NHL. This is not a guy that I'm expecting to see as an NHL option for at least 4 or 5 years, right? But he kind of a surprise inclusion on this list. Not like an unwelcome one necessarily, but definitely a guy that I was surprised to see so highly ranked, because I don't think he made my top 25. So the surprises keep on coming, and we've got another NCAA defenseman coming up next, I'm going to talk about Andrew Strathman, who was number 19 in the rankings. Just finished his first year in the NCAA for the University of North Dakota. Had 4 points in 30 games, which is, a defenseman, right? Coming off of a 39 in 48 games point season of the USHL. So he might be a good benchmark for what to expect from Henriks, right? Both played a couple of years in the USHL, both coming to the NCAA. Freshman year was not as prolific scoring wise as I think he probably wanted to be. So, I'm not going to sit here and expect Dan Henriks to put up, 30 or 40 points in the NCAA this season. But, if he can put up some points, then I think, again, Strathman feels like a similar-ish comparison, both fourth round picks, excuse me. Strathman came in 2023. Henriks came in 2024. Strathman's a lot smaller than Henriks. He's just 5'11", 190-ish pounds. So again, we'll see what happens there. But I get the feeling that again, he's another player that they're happy to just kind of just let them cook in the NCAA. Nothing over the top good, but could probably be a good piece for the AHL in a couple of years' time. So again, much higher on the consensus list than on my list. He did make my top 25, but he was, I believe, 25th on the list, so only just made it in. And we're going to keep on going with defensemen. We're going to keep going with mid-round pick defensemen. And we're going to talk about Malte Vass next, who is 18 on the list. Third round pick in the most recent draft is a Swedish defenseman, extremely, extremely defensively minded. He won't score and you can't make him. He had 11 points in 40 games for his J20 national team this year, which frankly seemed like I don't know that he'll hit 10 career points. I don't know that he'll hit 10 points in the SHL, which I'm assuming is what he's going to play in next season. He had 5 games for the SHL this most recent season, but Malte Vass is a extremely defensive defenseman. Just again, it is very much from that Nicholas Hjalmarsson, Jacob Slavin method of no one is going to do any offense. Not my team, not the other team. No one, no goals allowed ever, which is not necessarily a bad thing for a defenseman to be, but is not the most exciting prospect, right? So I guess again, I was kind of surprised that he was ranked as highly as he was. Again, going to be another slow burn. My guess is another couple of years in the SHL and then comes over. Probably a third pairing defenseman in the NHL, but one that can kill penalties and one that you send, a guy that you send out when you want to slow things down, right? Say that there's some kind of track meet happening, for example, everyone is scoring. Vass is a guy that you're going to send out there to be listen, no offense for anyone. Let's just get the game back under control, right? So gonna be an interesting one to watch. But again, I'm not expecting a ton from Vass on the score sheet, basically. We'll see what happens when he comes to North America again, probably in a couple of years. And that's the thing about we're in that part of the rankings right now of guys that are promising, but are probably, 3 to 5 years away from even starting to make an impact on the NHL roster, and probably longer than that for Vass, because again, he literally got drafted 5 minutes ago. Just turned 18, turned 18 in March. So one of the older players in the draft, but one of the younger players in the draft. I forgot how time worked for a second. But definitely someone that is gonna my guess is that you're not gonna hear anything about him for 4 years, and then he'll just suddenly show up in an NHL training camp, kind of the Gavrikov type of player, right? Drafted, and you don't really hear anything about him, and he just kind of shows up at camp one year as a 22 or 23-year-old and walks onto the roster. That's kind of what I envision for Vass. Although I don't know that he'll be as good as Gavrikov was for the Blue Jackets, or the Kings, and will probably go on to be for the Rangers. So a lot of potential. There are shades of Gavrikov in his game, but I'm going to be really interested to see how where he plays next year and how he plays next year are going to be question marks for me. We're going to finish off this first segment with a guy that, again, I am surprised was this high in the ranking. We're going to about Hunter McCown, who has been a Blue Jacket for a couple of years now. Signed out of Colorado College in the NCAA in the 22-23 season. Played 12 games for the Blue Jackets that year, had 2 points, both assists in that time. That was the season that the Blue Jackets were so injured and so miserably bad, and he on an ordinary year, I don't know that he would have gotten that, right? I could have seen him doing the Jack Williams thing of training with the team and skating with the team, and then the last game of the season, you throw him in there because why not? But he got 12 games. Has been a fine player for the Cleveland Monsters the past couple of years. 24 points in 53 games in his rookie season, 31 points in 68 games in the last season, which the Monsters were so top-heavy this year that I think that might actually be 4th or 5th on the team in scoring, which feels kind of wild. But Hunter McCown, I think, is basically what he is at this point, which is a fine top 6 forward for the AHL. I don't think there's an NHL player there, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? He is, again, was undrafted in the NHL draft, played 3 years at Colorado College, has a little bit of World Juniors under his belt. He played 4 games for the USA in 21-22 in their World Juniors, but he is what he is, right? You could probably slot him onto the 4th line and he'd be fine, but I'm not expecting a ton from Hunter McCown at this point, which, again, surprised that he was that high in the ranking. Not because I think he's a bad player, just because I think he is he's about what he is at this point, which is, there's not the question marks about his game, but that means that there's not the excitement of what could he turn into? And I think, we'll see how his next season is, but again, my guess is probably 30 to 40 points on the Monsters. He might get an increased role this season. Obviously, there's been a lot of departures from the Monsters. I think the team is going to struggle this season. Trefik Swilanski, for example, has left a big hole on that top line. Arguably, Luka Del-Balbaluz is on his way out of the Monsters as well. So there's opportunity there for Hunter McCown to step up. We'll see if he does. I'm not convinced. Let's take a quick break, and then when we get back, we're going to go back to the defenseman, and we're going to talk about Charlie Elliot in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I've got to tell you about FanDuel. We're coming up on August 26th, and that is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is going to give you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or you're ready to crown your Super Bowl champion before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Who do you think is going to be the MVP? Do you have a guy in mind yet? Lamar Jackson feels like a pretty good shout. Patrick Mahomes feels like a pretty good shout. Honestly, you could do worse than guessing that the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl, as boring as that is. But don't put your bets in yet. Put your bets in on August 26th. Visit the FanDuel app today. Start planning your bets now, because Futures Day is 1 day and 1 day only. FanDuel, play your game. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We're up to, I believe, number 16 on our top 25 under 25 players. We're going to talk about Charlie Elliot, who is about where I expected him to be, honestly. Charlie Elliot is potentially a bottom 4 defense. My guess is he's probably going to be a middle pairing guy, depending on what the team looks like when he's ready to make that jump, right? He's going to be back with the Tri-State Americans in this upcoming season is my guess. I believe he is technically old enough to be oh no, I don't believe he is old enough to make the jump to the AHL this year. You've got to turn 20 before the beginning of January of that season, I believe, and he turns 20 on January 17th. So he just misses that cutoff. So he's going to be back. He's going to be with the Tri-City Americans probably until the end of the season. He'll come back to the Monsters once his season is over. He's a really interesting player. He actually took steps backwards this season, I feel like, which makes sense. Like he played for a bad team and then got traded to a better team. And you know, that's the thing. Like sometimes you struggle to play for a bad team because the players around you aren't at your level, and then you get traded to a new team, and unfortunately, you move down in the lineup, right? So. His draft season, he had 27 points in 65 games for the Brandon Wheat Kings. Last season, he had 7 points in 33 games for Brandon. And then after he was traded to the Tri-City Americans, he added another 8 points in 33 games then. So doing math on the fly, 15 points in 66 games is not as good as 27 points in 65 games the year before. This is going to be a really key year for him, I think. Like, he has to make an impact on the Tri-City Americans. Like he shone in Brandon because I think he was one of the better players on that team. Team gets worse, he gets traded to a better team, and I think struggled, which getting traded mid-season is always hard, especially I feel like in like Major Junior, you know, you are so young and you get so set in, well, this is where I play and this is how I play, that, you know, your first major shakeup is, oh, I'm playing in the same league and we're playing the same game, but there are wildly different systems and different players, etc. Right? So I think it makes sense, but I do think that this season is going to be really key for him in terms of what kind of player is he going to be? Is he going to be a difference maker for Tri-City? And, you know, is he going to get the option when he makes the move to the AHL to be a difference maker there? Now, the Blue Jackets are in a weird place with defensemen at the minute in that they have, I think they have 6 or 7 options at defense for the Monsters, but I don't know how many of those guys are legitimate, like, top 4 play every game guys, right? It's going to be an interesting one. Like there's a space there for Elliot to step up. Certainly, he won't do it this season, but he could by next season, his rookie season. Like there's probably going to be gaps there. But I do think there's a Charlie Elliot. I think there's a question mark there in terms of, is there space in the organization for him at the minute? Like if he is the player that I think that they think he can be, there's no room for him in the lineup at the minute. Like, and again, it's going to be a couple of years before he's even ready to be an NHL player. You know, I think probably not next season, the season after, maybe he'll get a cup of coffee in the NHL. But like with your top 4 locked in, basically, you know, like, and you know, Matejchuk's kind of a question mark at the minute. But if Matejchuk's going to be on the team in 2 years' time, right? Knock on wood. I don't know what the plan for Elliot is, because I think the plan for Elliot was ostensibly to be that second pairing right defenseman, which appears to be taken for the next 7 years. So I guess just keep letting him cook, see where they're at in 2 years' time. Maybe there's a spot on the third pairing for him to step up and be a difference maker, because he can be a difference maker again. Like I've been trying to use this word less and maybe not succeeding all that much, but like potential is huge. For Elliot. Like he's just a really, really promising player if he hits. And I think there's a more than reasonable sized if at the minute. But that being said, he is about where I expected him to be on this list. And so is the next guy, Evan Gardner, who is our number 15 player. I'm a huge fan of Evan Gardner. He's one of those guys that's got that dog in him, right? Like his D-1 year got sent back to AAA instead of sticking in the WHL, and I think that really, really got to him. You know, I had him on the show and he talked about that, and he was like, "Well, I'm gonna be a difference maker." Made the jump to the WHL in his draft year, and basically just decided that he was going to be the starter about halfway through the season. finished with a 21-5 record, a 927 save percentage, a 910 in the playoffs as well. Saskatoon was really good that year. Last year was not quite as good, but I think that's because the team wasn't quite as good, but he still put up a 911 save percentage, was the full-time starter for the Blades in the WHL when their season finished, short, in the playoffs, very fast. He only played 4 playoff games. Went to the Monsters, made his pro debut there. Didn't win. I think allowed 4 goals in his ice time. But making your pro debut at 19 for a goalie is rough, and I think that he's going to take that experience and he's going to improve and improve and improve. And again, Blue Jackets have kind of an embarrassment of riches in goaltending prospect at the minute, but I'm really, really high on Gardner. And I believe, looking down this list, he is the goalie that they have ranked the highest, apart from Jet Greaves, who still counts on this list because he's only 24. But it's Greaves, first-ranked goalie, and then Gardner's the next ranked guy. So I think people agree with me. He is an extremely promising young goalie, and I don't believe, again, he's old enough to make that full-time jump. No, he turns 20 on January 25th. So another full year in Saskatoon, and then I wouldn't be surprised if the team thinks that he's ready to jump over at the end of next season, and that'll be his last game in Saskatoon. I think he's got one more season, and then I think he turns pro. And I think that there's nothing wrong with that, quite frankly. I'm a big Evan Gardner fan. Would love to see him work out. One more guy we're going to talk about before we take a quick break is Luca Pinelli, who is lower on the list than I thought he would be. But again, that might just be my bias. I love Luca Pinelli. He is Trafix Wolanski with higher upside. He played on a truly miserable Ottawa 67s team, had the option to be traded from that team and said, no, this is my team. I'm going to finish here. Had 71 points in 52 games. Season before that had almost 50 goals as the captain of the Ottawa 67s, excuse me. Played 9 games for the Monsters at the end of this season, 3 regular season games, 6 playoff games, and had 6 points in those 9 games, which is great. Just feels ready to be a difference maker when he turns pro. Yes, he's undersized, but that's a you problem, quite frankly. Another 4th round pick that probably shouldn't have been a 4th round pick. He slid in the rankings. I believe there was injury in his draft year, or there were some kind of concerns in his draft year. And he looked at all of those concerns and said, no, thank you. I'm going to be the best player on my junior team. And again, my height is a you problem. So he is a guy that of the prospects, he's one of those guys that I think he can just, again, kind of like Evan Gardner, he's got that dog in him, right? He decides that he's going to do something and does it. And I'm really, really, really excited to see what he does in his first full season as a pro. I'm expecting good things. And that's really, really exciting. We love the Lucas on this show. He's the lowest ranked of the 3 Lucas, which did surprise me a little bit. Again, I would have had him much higher. I don't know that I would have put him in the top 10, but I think I had him at 11 or 12. So we're going to take another quick break, and we've got another kind of surprise in the rankings here, and I'll explain what I mean by that as we talk about Stanislav Fosil next here on Locked on Blue Jackets. First, I'm going to tell you about Indeed, because you just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. That sucks. But how can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs post puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. I have been lucky enough to not have to job hunt for a while, but when I used Indeed, and you better believe I was clicking on every single sponsored job post, because they're the best ones, and they're right at the top of the page. They're easy to see. You just kind of click them without even thinking about it, and that's why I use Indeed. You get the best jobs without very much effort. They make sure that your post is seen by the right candidates right now. You can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now. Support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We've got 3 more guys to talk about today. So we're going to talk about number 13 on the list, and that is Stanislav Fosil, who I like Fosil a lot. I am surprised that he was this high on the list. Stanislav Fosil has been an extremely good defenseman for the Monsters. Was again a guy that slipped in the draft. The Blue Jackets took him in the 3rd round. Then everyone seemed kind of surprised that he was still there. He has been lapped by a handful of other defensemen that the Blue Jackets have brought in to the organization. You know, Denton Matejchuk, for example. But I still think that there's an NHL defenseman there with Fosil. And like honestly, he's my kind of dark horse for if the Blue Jackets need a defenseman due to injury this year. I think Fosil's gonna be the guy, right? Like, if you need someone on that 3rd pairing to play 12 to 14 minutes a night and not be an abject disaster, like this is the perfect time for Fosil to get his foot in the door. I like Stanislav Fosil a lot. I think he is of the AHL crew from the last couple of seasons. The guys that have been permanently in NHL as well. Like, we're not talking about David Jiricek, who went up and down, and obviously Matejchuk played 25 games there before getting called up. Like, Fosil is a guy that has been in the AHL for 2 full seasons now. Made his NHL debut in the 22-23 season. Got an assist in 2 games in that season. And again, doesn't put up the points necessarily in the AHL, but has been one of their more underrated and consistent defensemen over the past couple of seasons. So I like Fosil a ton. I do think that, again, he's kind of been lapped by the hype around Luca Morelli, who we're going to talk about in a second here. I think Charlie Elliot has probably lapped him in terms of potential. Obviously Jackson Smith coming in, and Jackson Smith is notably a left-handed defenseman like Fosil, so he's got an uphill battle to fight, I think, to make his way into the lineup. But I do think he is my dark horse for if they need an extra defenseman suddenly. My guess is that it's going to be Fosil that gets the call before any of the other Monsters defensemen. We're going to talk about forwards now, or we're going to talk about a forward. For player 12, James Malatesta, who is, again, the Blue Jackets organization has a bunch of these guys, which I think is probably why Brindley was traded, which I still don't agree with. Like, again, Gavin Brindley would probably have been in my top 10, potentially top 12 on this list if he was still in the organization. But the Blue Jackets have a lot of these undersized forwards that play like their size is a U problem, right? Again, he's very Treyfik Spolansky-like, but I think has a little bit higher upside. I don't know if he has much higher of an upside, and I don't know that he's a guy that, like, he's a 4th liner in the NHL, maybe a 3rd liner. Like, he's an energy guy. He's a pit bull. Like, had kind of a struggle this season. Only 14 points in 41 games after a reasonable enough rookie season for the Monsters. I believe had some injury troubles there. Didn't really show up in the playoffs for them. And again, has kind of been lapped by guys like Pinelli, who play a similar game, but at a higher rate. James Malatesta, I think, is going to be a very good Monster this year. Is potentially a guy that, there's holes in the Blue Jackets roster right now. Like, I don't think the bottom 6 is written in pen right now. And I think Malatesta, there's the opportunity for him to force his way into that conversation. I don't know if he does it, but I think the question is there, and it is going to be a case of, like, if he can willpower his way in, there could be something there. He played last season. He had 2 NHL games. I believe he was one of the call-ups when they had that weird injury bug, like, halfway through the season. Like, Monahan went down, and then, like, 3 other guys went down after him. Played 11 games the season before that, had 4 points in those 11 games with the Blue Jackets, and I wondered if he was going to be a candidate for that 4th line that, Mikhail Pucher ultimately ended up winning. But Malatesta, I think, is, again, probably right about where he should be on this list. I might have him a little bit lower. Like, I'd probably have him under, I think I have him under both Pinelli and Gardner, but like 12 to 14, maybe 15 spot is about right where I'd expect him to be. Again, ton of potential. I just think that the Blue Jackets have other players like him that have a higher upside. So it's up to him to make that upside his problem. His size is your problem, but the fact that he needs to make more of an impact, I think, is a him problem. So if he can figure that out, then there's definitely a bottom six NHL forward there. I'm just not sure that it's going to be this season or next season. Honestly, I think there's work for Malatesta to do. Let's talk about the final player that we're going to talk about today. Number 11 on our list is Luca Morelli, and I kind of spoiled the surprise earlier by saying we were going to talk about him today, but Luca Morelli had an extremely, extremely good season for the Oshawa Generals. He had 74 points in 67 games in the regular season, and then had 36 points in the playoffs, which I believe led all defensemen and was like third or fourth in playoff scoring. He was second in playoff scoring. The only player that had more points than him in the playoffs was Easton Cowan of the London Knights. Like, just an unreal, and he was playing on a stacked team as well. Like it has to be said. But 36 points, he outscored Sam Dickinson, who finished with 31 points, and obviously very, very highly touted defenseman. I'm not comparing the two because I think they are different players. But Luca Morelli is going to be a Cleveland Monster this year. He turns 20 before January, so he is eligible to be in the OHL. The AHL this year, and that's really exciting. Again, I don't know how his game is going to translate to the pros necessarily. I think he's probably going to have a little bit of a find out moment of, oh, this is not the OHL. I can't just skate around guys. I think he's going to figure out pretty soon that he can't do a lot of the tricks that he did in the OHL, but I also think that he has that capability to adapt. He's going to be an offensive defenseman. He is he does a lot of stuff. And doing a lot of stuff is not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, right? But he is a he is a volume defenseman, let's say. He is always jumping into play. He is skating after the puck. If he doesn't have the puck or if he gives up the puck, he's going to go get it. He is always looking for something to do. And he could maybe stand to do slightly less, but it's worked for him so far. And I think, again, that in the AHL will be, he figures out how to do less. And I think that'll be whether he can figure out how to do less and still be effective, I think is going to be the question for him in the AHL. But like I said, I'm really excited to see him play for the Monsters. There's a big hole in the Monsters' defense for a guy like him to step in. I think he probably immediately steps into the top four. Could potentially be a top pairing guy very soon into the season. Probably a ways away from the NHL, right? We've seen they don't want to rush defensemen. It took them how long to pull Matejchuk up? And he immediately showed that he probably should have been on the roster from the beginning of the season. But I don't think we're going to see that with Morelli. I think probably we'll get a full season in the AHL of him, and then maybe next year we'll see probably a mid-season call-up where he'll be like, yeah, no, I'm just on the team now. You're not sending me back down. But again, definitely someone to pay attention to. If you are a Monsters fan who is well, who the heck is going to even play defense for the Monsters next year? It's going to be Luca Morelli, and he's probably going to play a ton of minutes, and I think he's going to be a really fun player. I don't think I would have him this high. Again, I'd probably have Pinelli over him. Arguably Gardner as well, but he's a very, very promising defenseman that should be a lot of fun to watch for the Monsters this year. So that is 19 through 11. Friday's episode, we're going to do 10 through 1. So all of the big guns are still going to talk about. So that's going to be a lot of fun to talk about. Looking at this list, I'm this guy's great, this guy's great, this guy's great, which obviously it's the top 10 players, but I'm just really excited to talk about a bunch of these guys. So we'll do that on Friday. Thank you for listening to this episode, for making it your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms, over on YouTube, and you can find me on Blue Sky at JAKOBFORICER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets on Twitter. Thank you once again for listening. Friday, we'll be talking about 10 through 1 for our top 25 under 25, so make sure you stick around then. And until tomorrow, or until Friday, make sure you stay locked on.